couple of weeks ago on a Sunday afternoon, I got a call from a woman who was very excited, very nervous. She told me she woke up about 5 a.m. to hearing footsteps in her bedroom. She looked over and she saw, standing, looking out her window, the soul of a man. I told her I couldn't probably come over right away, which she was requesting, but I would come over the following day or Tuesday. I told her I had obligations. Well, as it turned out, those obligations went away. That doesn't surprise me. That happens often. That entity wanted me there. Okay. Upon my arrival, Nancy's there. Her boyfriend Jack is there. I look at Jack. Jack looked very familiar. I wasn't sure if I knew him or if he just looked familiar. But I kind of let it go because it wasn't important. The thing was about Nancy. After speaking with Nancy for a few minutes, I suggested we go to her bedroom. The three of us go upstairs. I go over to the window she pointed out. I look out. I got a feeling that there's some French Revolutionary soldiers around. I thought perhaps it was one of them. I felt as though that there was an encampment there. Now, I don't know a lot about the Revolution, but this was in garrison, and I'm sure there were probably soldiers there, whether they were French or not, I don't know. So I stood there looking out, started going into my zone. All of a sudden, I had a soul with me. The soul was telling me who he was, and I knew who he was. But I didn't tell Nancy at this time. I suggested we go downstairs, we sat at the kitchen table, and we started to go into what was really a reading more than anything else from the entity that was there. It turns out, I told Nancy that it was her father. Her father had passed, yes. I told her father was not good, was not really a good relationship. He was distant, probably not there for the family, but when he was, it wasn't good. He was violent. He was just generally not good. And this had affected Nancy throughout her whole life. By the way, Nancy's whole life as a child was very difficult and very hard. What the father was telling me now at this point was that it's time for Nancy to start dealing with what she lived with, to start to come to terms with what she had lived with. And I told that to Nancy, which she acknowledged. Also, Jack acknowledged the fact that Nancy was talking a lot about her father and having to come to terms with her relationship with him, come to terms with not actually having a father there for her. I'm not going to go deep into what her session was about. Her grandmother also came through, who was very compassionate, probably one of the more compassionate people in Nancy's life. And I told Nancy that, she had to deal with it and how she needed to deal with her father and the messages from her father. At this point, we're coming towards the end, I hear Mary. I said to her, "Do you know Mary?" Because I just heard the name Mary. I didn't see anybody attached to it. I just heard the name Mary. She said, "No, that doesn't make any sense." So I went a little deeper and I said, "Well, I just heard Aunt Mary. Make any sense?" No. Jack, who's kind of surprised, says, "Yeah, I think that's me." And I described the woman as dark hair, smoking a cigarette, playing cards. Jack laughs and said, "Yes, that's my Aunt Mary." And Jack got a few messages from Aunt Mary and about some of the things he should do and what's going on in his life. Very few, though. It was very soft. I didn't understand that. Upon the completion of our session, I asked Jack, I said, "Jack, you look familiar." He told me he owned a business in Mohegan Lake, and he goes around with the talent that I know, her and her family. He fixes their guitars or whatever. And I realized I knew Jack as a born-again Christian. Born-again Christians tear me up constantly. They do not believe in this. They don't want to believe in this. They don't want to be nice about it. I've been attacked several times on Facebook by them. But Jack never brought that up. I think he was kind of surprised. And he's thinking now, he never acknowledged one way or the other anything that occurred that day. So I think what's happening with Jack is he's probably trying to come to terms with what his religion is telling him and what he actually saw happen, for Nancy and himself, not just himself. So at any rate, I asked Nancy if she had any more questions. No. I told her father would no longer show himself to scare her, that he did it so that she would get me or somebody like me over to get his messages. And that he wasn't leaving, he'll be around to help her get through what she needs to get through. I gave her some suggestions on how to deal with it and how to get done with it. About a week later, I wasn't sure if Dad showed up again. I texted Nancy, asked if Dad showed up, and the answer was short and sweet, no, all is well. So the point of this video is, one, how Nancy found me was so convoluted, going from a landlord who had a tenant as a gun shop owner, who I did a clearing for because rifles were falling off her shelf that shouldn't have been the way they were. They shouldn't have been. And I cleared that store. So she went 40 miles, I like to say, to get a mile. She got me, she got her messages. Jack, I don't think, is such a skeptic anymore. I can't vouch for that because I haven't heard from him. And some people that know him haven't acknowledged it one way or the other. So anyway, I wrote about it, probably a little bit more concise than this. If you want, you read it. If not, you watch this and let it go. All right, I want to thank you for stopping by and hope to hear from you soon. I'd like to know what you think about this video. This is actually my first attempt.